So welcome. I see some new faces that have just arrived too. Great to see you. I have my coffee with cinnamon ready to go. It's a very comfy morning, afternoon, I guess, with the rain. It's awesome. I'm glad to see you all. Um, so today I just wanted to give like a check-in, see how everyone was doing, if there were anything that you need or wanted to learn about. And then I have some new stuff I can share with you too. And we can just get into it. So anybody have personal updates they want to share? Anything exciting going on?
No, not. I can't believe I actually got to the end of the discs that I had from you before with the photos, and then I'm coming to collect some more today.
Yes.
It seems very strange not to be thinking, oh, I must sort the photos because I had run out.
That's awesome. Yes, I have many more to share with you.
Yeah.
And it's been a little clunky, as some of you know, because I'm the bottleneck getting photos back out to people. But I'm very happy to say that we've started interviewing for our interns, and we were hoping to have our intern decided on now and to introduce you today, but we had to schedule the second interview for next week, so we'll know next week. And we're going to hire two this semester and two next semester, so we have some really fun and exciting people that are going to join us and help with this, in addition to some other things they want to work on too for themselves. So I'm looking forward to that. That'll be exciting. I know, so hard to choose. We got like 30 applications and they were all wonderful, wonderful people. So that'll be fun. And that's coming. And then I'm going to, oh yeah, go ahead.
Well, will they be full-time?
No, so
Working full-time or?
we got funding. We decided, because the evolution of this was that we were being approached by students at the university who wanted to do internships for credit, which is great, and we were happy to work with them on that stuff. But then we were thinking about it, and we said, it would be a lot more equitable and more fun to do a paid internship where we advertised it, and maybe someone who couldn't afford to do a free internship would have an opportunity, and we could do some mentoring in the community and also get help on some of the things we want to do. So, so we worked on that, and we got the funding for 4 interns, and we decided to do 2 and 2, and hopefully we can continue the program beyond that. We are paying them $15 an hour for 10 hours a week, which is, a good amount of time for someone who might be going to school at the same time. Although we did have applicants who were still in high school, and we had applicants who had left school and were also, fully professionals working. So we had a whole array of people. It was really, really interesting.
That's cool.
Yeah. So we'll be able to introduce them next time. I'm going to share my screen. Screen 2. Share. All right. So, can you see that all right?
Yes. Yeah.
All right. Okay. So, I'm going to share these dates with you. You're the first ones to see this because I literally finalized them yesterday. So, every year in September, we do a volunteer appreciation. And this year we decided to kind of expand it into a volunteer appreciation month. And we haven't been able to meet in person and do in-person events, since the start of the pandemic. There's still a lot of concerns around that. So we wanted to have some options that were outdoors and also virtual, and that would allow, people to do what they're most comfortable with. So we're going to kind of go on tour a little bit and have an event on September 10th at El Rio Preserve, and we'll talk about our Tucson Mountain project. Maybe do some birding. If people want to do frisbee golf, I guess we could do frisbee golf. It's not my thing, but we could. And then on September 18th, which is a Sunday, we're going to meet at Davidson Canyon Trailhead and we can do some hiking and wildlife tracking, and we'll talk about some of the Pima County land acquisitions that we've been working on successfully in that area. We can talk about updates to the Rosemont mine stuff. We can talk about our I-10 East project and see Cienega Creek. And then on September 22, which is a Thursday, we'll do another one of these. So folks who want to just participate virtually, we'll do one of these, and we'll give an update on how it's been going for the year with volunteers, and do some appreciation and share some of the stuff from the previous events. And then on October 1st, we're going to have still informal, but a slightly more informal Catalina State Park event. So we have the picnic ramada reserved, and Kathleen's coming down from Flagstaff. Waylon has promised to make their famous granola bars, if you remember those from eons ago when we were doing highway cleanups, which we will do again. So that should be fun. We'll have another outdoor event, and we'll do that kind of more in the traditional style of a volunteer appreciation that we used to do, right? So we can look forward to that. I'm very excited that we're starting to do a little bit more of that kind of stuff. And again, you know, we're still taking it one day at a time. It's still a pandemic, but hopefully we can make something work out so that we can see each other and at least air hug from closer together. So that's the plan. Our new interns will be there, and we can hang out a little bit. So those dates, you'll hear more details about those, and I'll be sending those out on the volunteer updates and stuff like that too. So let's see if I can move on to the next thing here. So we wanted to share today a little bit of project updates with what we've been doing, and the most recent thing is our I-10 East project, which I've been talking about quite a bit, and I'm trying to think who's working on that database mostly. Most of the folks that have been doing the photo sorting have been working in this database because I had a deadline and I was trying to get those photos sorted first. So that project we officially wrapped up with our Game and Fish grant, and I sent in our final report on that. That included our wildlife camera monitoring on I-10 East and our roadkill surveys for that project. And I can share with you the results of the roadkill project, but I want to do it in a way where I'm not sharing photos of dead animals, because I know some people don't want to opt into that. So I'll show you some of these graphs without the photos. How about that? Now, our roadkill study was kind of an interesting and fun new thing to do. I mean, it's hard to say fun when you're talking about roadkill, but it's really interesting to me that collecting roadkill data is so valuable, and hardly anyone's doing it, but it's a very easy way of gathering information about where animals are attempting to cross the road and not able to do it successfully. So we can get ideas of hot spots where animals are crossing, and this can be really, really informative. So our roadkill surveys were, they had limitations because this is I-10, you're going 65 miles an hour, and your detectability, they call it, what you're able to see when you're going at those speeds, is not very good. And Saguaro National Park has done roadkill surveys on the park, where they compared driving surveys where they were going 15 miles an hour with walking surveys, and they were walking along, and they found that the driving surveys at 15 miles an hour missed like 85% of the things on the road. So as you can imagine, we really aren't catching everything when we're doing this driving survey, but we are catching a lot of the larger animals, and we're getting something. You know, any data point is helpful. So, and And we were not going to be walking on Interstate 10 because that's just not safe. So we weren't going to do that. But we still got some really good data. We went up on with Lighthawk. Lighthawk is a nonprofit organization that works with other nonprofits and pairs them with pilots to go up in these little planes and do whatever you need to do in the little planes. So we've built a really good relationship with Lighthawk. And actually, as part of our volunteer appreciation, we'll be raffling off some seats so volunteers can join us up in the air and see some of our project sites and stuff. So that's something we're excited about. I took this picture on a Lighthawk flight of this study area. The Rincon Mountains are in the background, and you can see Cienega Creek, and then here's I-10 right through it. We put cameras at all of these culverts where the tributaries crossed I-10, and we did roadkill surveys of the whole stretch. And Renor, one of our volunteers who builds his own custom-built camera traps, took some photos as well. So we got some really good photos of wildlife in the area using the culverts. This is the lights from the traffic above, so you can see where I-10 is, tail lights. So it was really interesting. We did two survey periods. So for about 2 months, we went out once a week to drive the road in the monsoons, because during the monsoons is when animals are moving around a lot. So we wanted to concentrate our survey into a period where we knew animals were moving around. And unfortunately for us, we started this in 2019 and things changed rapidly after that. So our first survey went really well. We had 47 data points, a lot of rabbits and coyotes. We also saw opossum, javelina, mule deer, lots of skunks. And then in 2020, we had to change it a little bit because we were under lockdown at that time. We also had fewer data points, I think because people weren't driving. So there was just less roadkill, which was great, but not great for me collecting data necessarily. We got 31 data points during that survey period. And that was kind of fun in a way because instead of having volunteers help us with that, my husband volunteered and my kids volunteered, and we just fed them donuts and went every morning and did that survey. So as you can see, there was a definite hot spot of where we were seeing a lot of critters being hit on the road, and this area corresponds with that spot just east of Cienega Creek before Mars Station Road and Imperita Road. And that area, if you remember, had some construction done in recent years, and the topography is such that it has these high cliffs on either end, and the railroad is right there, and there's no culverts in that area. It's completely, there's no safe passages for wildlife in that spot. And if they get into there, because of the topography, they're kind of stuck on the roadway, bouncing back and forth, trying to find a way out until they get to Cienega Creek or until they get to the railroad underpass further east. So that kind of makes sense. So that's a site that we're paying attention to. Here's how that data looked as we graphed it. We saw roadkill associated with some of these culvert sites. A lot of these culverts are perfectly adequate, as we saw from our camera data, that animals are using them, but there's no funnel fencing. There's nothing to force the animals to use the culvert. So on these particular spaces or sites near Davidson Canyon, the topography's, there's a lot of ridge lines, and a lot of animals are coming up over the ridge line and using the ridge line instead of ridges. So we were seeing that. And then again, a lot of roadkill right here east of Cienega Creek. And then I just went ahead and FOIA'd ADOT for their crash record data, and I graphed that also. Crash records provided slightly different kinds of information because this is only what is reported on a police report from a vehicle collision, and they only write animal as the cause, so we don't know if it was a domestic dog or wildlife. And these are only accidents where a police report resulted from it. So it's not comprehensive data, but it's something. And we expect that a lot of those are going to be things like deer or bears, larger animals that would cause a significant accident. And a lot of those are occurring right at the Pima County, Cochise County line. And this is in correlation with where we saw all of our deer. The deer like to cross where it's really flat, and they don't like the rugged topography so much at Davidson Canyon. They use the culverts in that case, but down where it's flatter, the deer prefer to use the road. So that's what's going on there. And that data that's helpful because we can talk to ADOT about the value of fixing some of these problems from a human safety standpoint. They're far more inclined to do something for driver safety than they are for wildlife populations. So that's the argument there. And then in the course of our study, we also collected some bear mortality data. We didn't see any bears as part of the survey itself, but during that period, there were 3 bears hit on the road. And I worked with Game and Fish to collect those data points, and we mapped those too. So interestingly enough, we had altogether 4 bear mortalities on the highway, and all of them were associated with either Davidson Canyon or Cienega Creek, but they went up over the ridge. They didn't use the drainage. And we have camera data that shows that they will use the drainages too. So it's just, again, a matter of funneling them to the safe places to cross, right? Although this will be interesting because the wildlife funnel fencing that has been designed thus far that we're using by SR77, Oro Valley, has not been tested on bears. So we'll see how that works. It works great for deer. If a bear wants to get through it, I'm pretty sure a bear can decide to go through it.
Jessica, do you have any data on the time of day or the weather in relation to some of these events?
Well, all of our surveys were all done during the monsoon season, after, so like July, August, September period, about right now, because from previous roadkill surveys that have been done by Game and Fish and other Soaring National Park, we knew that that was a good time to catch the most stuff moving around. Anecdotally, I can say that right after a rain event, we did see more stuff on the road. And I don't know if that's because visibility's down and people don't see animals on the road and can't avoid them, or animals are moving more frequently, or culverts are flooded and they don't want to use them. It's hard to say. But I will say that a lot of things are moving at night, which is why all of our roadkill surveys were done right at sunrise, so that we could see what had been hit that night. And it's odd, but a lot of things disappear really quickly. Animals will drag them off the road or something. So.
And were any accidents caused by some of these hits, like with the bear?
Yes. One of the bears that was hit during our survey period was it was a 400-pound adult male black bear, and it was hit by a semi-truck.
Really?
And yeah, it caused a significant accident. You can imagine a bear would cause a significant accident. And then there was another one, and it was a Ford F-150 truck hit the bear, and the truck was totaled, completely totaled. So it's not safe for sure. But
Jessica,
yeah.
I noticed that the crash data did not indicate that your hotspot was an issue. Is that because it was smaller animals being hit there?
Yes, I think so. Also, my crash data ended in 2019, so it's not the same time period. And I need to FOIA them again and get up-to-date data and see if that changes. But this is a pretty big period, so we'll see. I mean, and ours is kind of just one snapshot too. It's hard to say for sure, But yes, our data captures smaller animals, and that's okay because even if what we're looking at is a hotspot of rabbits, it's still telling us where there's gaps in the fence or where animals are being able to get up onto the road, right? And one of the sites, this one here actually, where we had 2 bears near my post 285. This is just east of Davidson Canyon. So after you pass the Davidson Canyon Bridge, you go kind of up on this ridge, and there's a culvert there on the westbound lane. I'm sorry, on the eastbound lane, there's a box culvert. It's not very big, not big enough for a deer to use, but big enough for a bear. And it opens up into the median. And then on the other side, on the eastbound lane, it's 2 pipe culverts that are full of bats most of the year. And it's on a gentle, just lovely, gentle slope right up onto the road. So the cameras that we placed there were showing deer, coyotes, javelina, bobcats, just bypassing the pipe culvert and going right up and onto the highway. So those kinds of things are what we call like low-hanging fruit. It would be really cost-effective and affordable to just fence it. And make that's one place where we could put in a crossing structure. But in the meantime, we can also just funnel fence to Davidson Canyon or to the next one over, so that animals are encouraged to use them. So our recommendations are to put wing fencing. So that's like funnel fencing that goes just around each culvert and several of these culverts, and then improve this pipe culvert and make it into a box culvert. And we have a couple sites we're thinking about that could be a wildlife bridge. So cross your fingers for more wildlife bridges. We have, ADOT is supportive of this so far, and Pima County is partnering with us and is interested in sponsoring a proposal to the Regional Transportation Authority for funding for this. Carolyn's been working behind the scenes to get the RTA to accept that proposal in this funding period instead of the next one. So we're working on that. And Game and Fish, of course, has been on board. They've been funding this project with us. So we have a lot of community support, and I'm excited about it. I think it's a great project that is producing some really tangible outcomes. So we can look.
How high does the fence need to be to stop the deer from jumping over?
Yeah, for deer we need 8 feet, and that's how high it is over by the Oracle Road overpass and bridge.
Gosh, is that high enough?
8 feet. And we have a 3-foot high mesh along the bottom of it, and that is to keep the snakes and smaller critters out as well. And it's mostly just, it's mostly a guide. If an animal really, 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 really wants to get over it, they will. Yeah. But for the most part, they try to take the path of least resistance, right? So, yeah. And then other good news too on the Oro Valley front is that when the wildlife crossing structures were built, we had to postpone fixing some places where the fencing hadn't been finished due to jurisdiction issues and other complications. And starting on the 1st, so this weekend, the gates are being installed by the underpass. So yes, that was like, I think I started on that project when I was pregnant with Mateo. So it's 4 years. It takes a while to get some of these things done. Many thanks to Pat Miller and Henry Miller for helping us through that process with the neighborhood. But we finally found a solution that everybody liked. So we're going to have automatic vehicle gates at the entrances to those neighborhoods that tie into the sound wall, and we'll finally get those gaps fixed. Very exciting. So this is the roadkill study, and I'm hoping we can do some more roadkill studies, either driving or maybe biking on some places where we just don't have enough data for that. Yeah, so here's the project, and those are all the culverts where we had cameras. And this is the gap where we don't have any culverts right here, where you can see the yellow is a wildlife movement corridor.
This is great work, Jessica. Are you going to be publishing this anywhere besides the Game and Fish report that you submitted?
Yeah, my plan is to follow up with the Game and Fish report, which is in a lot of ways preliminary because there's still a lot of analysis we can do with the camera data, and publish a white paper. White papers are policy papers that you kind of publish internally. You put them on your website or in your own newsletters. They're not peer reviewed through a journal. And the reason for that is that white papers are intended to inform policy and they need to get out, right? If you're going to publish in a journal like Peer J or the Journal of Wildlife Management, it could be 3 years before it actually gets published, and it costs money, which nonprofits don't always have the ability to do. And when I say it costs money, I mean like $3,000, $6,000. The academic publishing world is a racket. So there's ways to do it. Peer J is actually an online journal that I like a lot because it's open access. You don't have to pay to read the journal. It's all online. So we might do that down the road. I haven't had the capacity to do that. So what I'm hoping is that with interns on board, and we're hoping to hire a new staff person also in next year, I'll have the capacity to do that a little bit more. So, but definitely I am planning to do a white paper, so that'll come out with all this. Because, you know, this is fun and it's great to get out there in the field, but if you don't share the information or do anything with it, it's absolutely useless. So we want to use it. So this is a fun project. I really like that it was a concrete project where we could finish it, wrap it up, and then we have like a solid plan for what we're going to do with that data and what it's going to accomplish for us. And then down the road, we can also redo those roadkill surveys and those camera monitoring surveys after we have structures built and fencing in and show a before and after. So that's another thing we could do down the road too. That's pretty neat. So that's the I-10 East project. I can give you a quick tour of our other projects too. Let's see, in Oro Valley, here's where we have all of our cameras. The orange ones have been present since before the wildlife crossings were built. And the blue ones are newer. And we have an equal number of cameras east and west of the highway. Here's the wildlife crossing structures, there's the bridge, and there's the underpass. And we definitely have them grouped a little bit more around where our underpass is. And that's been helpful. One really exciting result that we had this year was our first mountain lion using the underpass. And our cameras caught it in Big Wash, and then Game and Fish's cameras caught it in the underpass, and then that lion missed all of these cameras, but got caught on this one.
Oh,
So
Where's that one?
this is our Kawadi camera, and Karen and Alan Dahl check this camera, and it's just east of this is the stable right here and this is the underpass. So it's like directly east of the underpass in Catalina State Park proper. Christine, you probably ride around in here, so yeah. We have one camera up here in the back of someone's property. But yeah, so that was fun to see, kind of like a needle in a haystack. I'm really shocked we caught the cat way over here, not over here. But it just goes to show, you know. So that was fun. And then this cat also hung out around Sun City for quite some time and got caught on some of these other cameras up that folks had in their backyards. So she hung out for a little while over in Big Wash. But that's fun. That's really great. And then I can show you too, like the fencing gap solution that we have over here. The gates are going to be going in here, on here, and then this is our coyote camera. There's a gap here where animals can come up through the wash and onto the highway here still. And we're putting in some wildlife fencing that goes from the sound wall to the back of this back wall here to block that. And then on this end, there's a little emergency access road, and we're going to block that. The wildlife fence stops before it gets to the sound wall. So we're putting in a gate and a cattle guard. And that will tie up all the gaps around the underpass. We do have data of animals coming up through by that the coyote camera here. We had big mule deer and everything. You can see the cars moving in the background, and they're just happily going back and forth, which is not so great. And we had tortoises that would come up. You know, they've got GPS tags on them, so we could track them pretty closely. They were coming up, but going up and trying to they kept getting caught by this person over here, and they would catch it and put it back in here, and it would come back. So
Jeez.
it was really determined. So we're hoping that we can, with that gate, we can keep the tortoises safe. So that's, you know, that project's been going on now for almost, 10 years. And some of these cameras, like the deer camera, I think this is the deer camera, have been active that whole time. And it's been really, really cool. That's like a wealth of data for us to look at. So that's that project. And then we've been doing a lot of new stuff in the Tucson mountains. So this is I-10 by Aver Valley Road and the El Rio Preserve up in Marana, basically in Marana. This wildlife linkage connects the Tortolita Mountains to the end of the Tucson Mountains. We have had cameras on private properties all along here, along the edge of the Tucson Mountains, since the beginning of this project. And now we're expanding it. So we've now got our cameras in the Los Moteros area. We've got 4 cameras up on the ridgeline here. So there's where those are. We've got 4 cameras in El Rio Preserve, which has water year-round now. We've got 4 cameras along the river, and these are spaced out according to a protocol that was set by a U of A study that's looking at the Santa Cruz River. Let's see, I can show you where those are. So there's, all these little dots down here are cameras for this U of A project along the Santa Cruz River. So our cameras match their study design, and they can include that data with their project. And then we have 4 cameras in this area east of the highway in a development that Pima County acquired. It's a really cool space, actually. Yeah.
What's the purpose of that U of A study?
I don't actually know. I think it's just to see what's using the river, and it's in conjunction with a lot of the work that they've been doing to bring water back and do restoration down there. So they're just looking at what wildlife are using it. I don't know. It's a U of A PhD students doing that project. You had a question, Christine?
Yeah, you can hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. The data that you gave me, is that the I-10 East? Is that the cameras in that area?
I gave you I-10 East.
Yeah.
Yes.
Is that that's the data I'm looking at?
Yeah.
Okay. That's some cool stuff. I've gotten a lot of cool creatures.
Yeah. Well, that area, by Cienega Creek, we get bears, we get coati, we get raccoons, all 4 species of skunks, possum. There's everything except for jaguars, unfortunately for us. But
that's what I was pretty much saying today. I think I've seen everything but bear and jaguar so far.
Yeah.
Yeah, turkeys too, don't they, Jessica? Turkeys,
Yeah.
wild turkeys.
it's really interesting to compare the different project areas because the Tucson Mountains actually is our most threatened linkage, and we're really watching closely to see how the skunks are doing and some of those mesocarnivores, the smaller things. We're looking at the rabbit population because that's food for everything else, and we're looking at deer. And we have not seen any deer yet along the river or El Rio Preserve. It's really constrained right here. So the plan is Pima County is moving forward. They were able to acquire this little triangle of land here, and they already own this. So they're going to make this big basin right here, and they're going to make a bowl, and it's going to funnel into this culvert that exists right here. It's an old abandoned railroad underpass. So we're going to use that as a wildlife crossing until we can build something else. So what we're essentially doing right now is we're building everything to funnel towards the crossing structure and closing the door, so to speak, until we can build it and open the door, right? So we have land protected on the east side here, and Pima County owns this Los Materos Conservation Area and all of this, and then we have the river and El Rio Preserve, and they own this. So what we're going to do is make a big bowl here. There's going to be a little bridge that goes over, or I'm sorry, the bike path is going to be a bridge and go over it. And we're going to connect this to the river. Right now there's a big berm that makes it really difficult for anything to get into the river from the east side. So we're going to make that possible and open this up. So that's really exciting. That's an exciting project too. We're starting to get this all, like the landscaping and everything figured out. Floodplain control is on board with it and is moving forward with it, regardless if we have funding for this yet or not. They're just, you know, it's the build it and they will come, not just for the wildlife, but also for the funding. So, you know, so this is an area where we're looking in the future to actually build a wildlife bridge. Currently, this is an underpass, but we know that ADOT is going to be doing construction further north at an interchange, and their plans long-term, and by long-term I mean like 10 or 20 years, I don't know, they don't have a timeline yet, is to actually flatten this and take the dirt that they have here to use over there. So they're going to flatten it, and that makes it really easy to make a bridge at the same time when they're doing that construction. So that's,
Jessica, those 4 cameras, are they picking up wildlife going through the culvert now?
No, so these ones have not been placed yet. We're waiting for our permit from ADOT to place those. And I don't expect to see anything really moving through it very much yet anyway. We're just going to put them there and leave them there and show what's happening now. And then after we get that bowl built, we'll see if anything changes. Currently, they have some vehicle barrier, like the cement vehicle barriers in place that when we go place those cameras, we'll just like move them a little so there's an opening for animals, because right now it's not.
So when you say it's a basin, are you thinking there's going to be water in there at some point, or is it water runoff, or?
No, no water. It's just going to be shaped like a entry point into the underpass. And then eventually it'll be a bridge, right? So what we're trying to do is dig out. This part's hard to see, but there's a big tall berm right here that keeps the water in the river and out of this area. So there's actually a really big drop off. So animals can't get in very easily at all. What they're going to do is open it up, and it'll be a basin because when this floods, it'll fill with water.
Okay.
But it won't go anywhere. It'll just be like a little pond that swoops in and comes back out. So they're essentially going to take this river and give it an extra curve with an access point to this eventual bridge, right? They're handling all the water situation. And then El Rio Preserve also acts as a overflow system. So they have a levee here, and when it hits a certain level of water, it opens up and fills this with water too.
And they're pumping water in, right?
Yes, now they're pumping water in to keep water there year round for birds and animals. So that's what we have going on. We have, projects in all stages of development going on right now. And then we've got 5 cameras also in Soaperi Wash down by Amado and down south. And the Arizona Land and Water Trusts are monitoring those. And those, it's not really a study. It's more like, let's get some pretty outreach photos and show donors, why we want to buy this conservation area up and protect the linkage. So we have that going on too.
Is there any cameras slated for Tangerine Road?
No, and that's partly because Game and Fish has been monitoring that with cameras. And I actually have a report on that project. The wildlife crossing structures built on Tangerine were made for medium-sized animals mostly. But they did put cameras in some of those new culverts. And actually, like, one fun result from that was that, they were showing passage rates, animals who approach and turn away versus animals who approach and go through. It's really useful information. And they had this one site where they had built the wildlife crossing underpass culvert, and the coyotes were approaching it and not going through, and approaching it and not going through, and approaching it and not going through. And they're like, why does this look so weird? And but when they looked at the data, it was like a little family of coyotes had denned up right on one side, and so there were pups playing at the entrance and triggering the camera, and so the camera data showed that there were a lot of coyotes on one side and not coming out on the other side.
Oh my goodness.
And it was like they were just living there. So that was fun. Fun result. Yeah. So that's the tour. That's what we have going on right now in terms of the programs and the cameras. I'm hoping that we can do highway cleanups again soon. We're working with ADOT to get me and hopefully our new person down the road to trained, I guess. We have to go through a certification to lead those. So we can start doing that again. And I don't know. I'm thinking about ideas for the desert roadies, for the roadkill surveys, and where else we could do that kind of work too. So lots of stuff going on. Thanks to your help to do it, because it's just, 4 of us, mostly me doing this stuff. So you've been an excellent help, and Christine and Mitty and Virgil and Joanne have been super helpful with the camera data. Thank you. Because that's important. Okay. I'll stop sharing my, did I get everything? Yeah. Stop share. There we go. Yeah. So I wanted to give, that's just like a really quick overview. So we have time for questions and hanging out and stuff too.
I just want to say thank you so much, Jessica. I really learned a lot and appreciate it. I have to go to another Zoom meeting right now, but anyway, thanks so much.
Thank you, Harold. Thanks for popping in.
Thanks. Okay, thanks. Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye.
Yes. Hey, I'm wondering if you'd been in contact at all with Cheryl Mullahan, who's doing that urban bobcat study. Because there's a big article in the Daily Star about a week ago, and actually that bobcat Avery is the one that's in our subdivision, and I picked up her and an uncollared bobcat quite a few times on the wildlife cameras I have outside my house.
That's awesome. Yeah, I know the folks doing that project, and actually it's like urban bobcat monitoring was my first job way back in the day. So I know all those folks, and this is kind of like the next reiteration with callers. And it's been really cool to see their updates on where the animals are moving. So you guys should look it up. It's the Tucson Bobcat Project, and they've collared quite a few bobcats, mostly around the Tucson mountains, on the west side of town, and a few other places too. And tracking, where they're able to go and how big their home ranges are, and it's really neat. They haven't quite gotten up as north as our project area, and I keep telling him, "Come on, you gotta get us some bobcats on our side, because I want to see see them on our cameras too." Especially near Rattlesnake Pass, because the plan is to put a wildlife bridge or underpass there too. And it'd be interesting to see that. That's a really fun project, collaring bobcats. When I did that study way back in the day, we were collecting DNA information. So my job was to collect scat and to collect tissue samples from roadkill. It's nasty. And then we did DNA, and we were looking to see if bobcats were related in the Tucson area, because if you get these little genetic populations separated from each other, then you know that there's no connectivity, no movement. So that's another way of seeing if there's barriers to wildlife movement. And we found at the time that I-10 and I-19 were not barriers to bobcats at that time, and the genetic population was all one genetic population for Tucson. And I was like, oh, a long time ago. I don't 2007. So I don't know where it is now, and I think some aspect of that might be because we have pretty active wildlife rehabilitation groups here, and they re-release bobcats, and that might help move the genetics around too in Tucson.
So they don't like to be collared very much, do they?
Different animals react to that differently. I would say that any wild animal would prefer not to be captured and collared. But the cats actually, bobcats, and mountain lions don't have much of a reaction to it. They get used to it. Deer also. There's regulations on how heavy and big that collar is allowed to be. They make them for as small as hummingbirds. So, but weight is an important factor. And they're all made so that they will, when they're dead, when the batteries die, they break off on their own and fall off, so you can collect them. And they even make some for kittens that grow with the kitten. So it's pretty interesting.
So do you trap them and then tranquilize them and then put the collar on?
Collaring animals gives you some really interesting information, because you can get in real time, very accurate location information, but it does require hands-on manipulation of the animal, because yes, you're trapping them and you have to trank them so that they're asleep when you put the collar on, and there's a time. You have to have a vet on call. You do all these things, and you have to do it in a certain time frame and everything. And that's the case with any animal, including little birds and bats and all of that stuff. So, yeah, there's a right way to do it, and always a wrong way to do it. But this project's been highly successful, and you can tell when they're doing a really good job, because you don't have any injuries or deaths or anything occurring from the project, and that's what you look for. Josh knows a lot about this because he works with zoo animals.
Yeah.
Some things just require capturing an animal. If you're providing medication, for instance, which they sometimes do too. So, but again, with any study, you want to make sure that the data you're collecting is worth the risk to the people and to the animals that you're interacting with. That's always the case. Yeah.
It was really cool seeing the Google map zoomed out, so we could see like all of our site locations and kind of see how things piece together. I didn't realize that wildlife actually navigate like to the Tortolitas and then maybe to the Catalinas. Was that it? Rather than just going straight from the Tucson to the Catalina.
Yeah.
So thank you for that. That was really cool.
Yeah, that's the idea. So we've been working in Oro Valley, you know, the wildlife bridge is getting animals from the Catalinas to the Tortolitas. And then we know from wildlife modeling that they're moving that way, and then they're moving from the Tortolitas down into the Tucson's that direction. Yeah.
Cool.
They're kind of going around all of our development, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, like one exception to that might be the river. They're using the Rito River and they're all connected through the river system. But again, a lot of that's really urban and not as comfortable for critters to move through. So they're heading for, especially some of those bigger things like bighorn and deer and lions. They're headed for the mountain to mountain. Yeah. So that's pretty cool. We're starting to connect it all.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much, Jessica. I tried putting a message in the chat. I'm not sure if it worked, but anyway, that I just, as a longtime supporter of the coalition, I'm just makes me feel really good to see all the stuff that you guys are doing and to think of all the animals that are being saved and
Yeah.
the data that's being collected. So thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, happy to
Wonderful.
give updates anytime on this stuff and talk about where we're at with things. It's one of the cool things about the work we're doing is that they are, conservation's a long-term movement, long-term, especially when you're doing policy changes and some of these construction projects, it just takes forever. Feels like sometimes, like those wildlife gates over by the underpass, 4 years, man. But then they happen and then the successes are there, just one step at a time, right? So it's really great to have everyone's support to do it. And that's how it gets done at the end of the day, right? So thank you. So I'm not just doing this all by myself. It's awesome. Yeah, and so I'm recording this and I'll share it out with everyone so people who missed it can see it again. And again, we'll have, those of you who came on a little later, we have some events in September that we're planning, some in-person events. You're all welcome to come out, and we'll go to El Rio Preserve and Davidson Canyon. We'll be in Catalina State Park for a volunteer appreciation event, and we'll do another Zoom like this and update you again on where we are with a bunch of things. So thank you for coming, and anytime you need anything, just shout out and let me know, all right? I'm here. Working.
Yes, she is.
I really
Emergency
appreciate
calls even.
I really appreciate the volunteers who are willing to even come out to my house. Like Mitty, she's coming by today so I can just hand her data and I don't have to drive for 30 minutes to the office anymore. Woohoo. But yeah. Thank you guys.
Thank you, Jessica.
Yes, thanks for everything.
Bye.
And thanks to everybody behind the scenes, like all the important big time players getting the connections between the Department of Transportation and, Game and Fish, and just having all that connectivity and having all of those, companies and entities on board. It wouldn't be anything without all that. I mean,
Yeah.
those are the big time players in this.
Yeah.
And, kudos to you guys and Carolyn for keeping those people, real and keeping them working towards the better good.
I know. I keep telling, like the interns and volunteers that we get students, a lot of times you get into conservation because you love being outside and you love wildlife. And the job really involves relationship building with people. That's what it is. So, but that's part of the fun too, sometimes. So.
Sounds like
I think that's one of the big achievements of the coalition is exactly that.
Yep, that's how you get it done. It really is. So we're hoping to show more with that. Carolyn's actually done some amazing work helping diversify the RTA and some of the citizen advisory stuff going on there and things. So that's awesome too. And more tribal involvement in everything. They need to be, personally, I think they need to be leading the the table, not just at the table. You know, they have such great ideas. So that's also really awesome to see that starting to happen more and more too. Yeah. Got a lot to celebrate. Despite everything, we're still doing it.
Yep.
So,
Okay.
thank you,
Thank you very much.
Yes, thanks.
Thanks, Jessica.
Thank you.
and we'll see you soon.
All right.
Bye.
Hopefully in person.
Bye.
Bye.